Aita for leaving my post during the battle. Thermopylae. 480 BC. What would you choose? Glory and death, or shame and life? In ancient Greece, one soldier faced that choice and made a decision that haunted him forever. Welcome back to If Reddit Existed Back Then, where we explore the impossible moral dilemmas faced by real people throughout history. Today, we're traveling to ancient Greece in the year 480 BC, to one of the most famous battles ever fought, where 300 Spartans stood against an empire of millions. If you're enjoying these historical deep dives, hit that subscribe button because we're bringing you a new impossible choice from history every single week. Let's read his post. RR Spartan Warriors, posted by user Aristodemoson of Telos in the year 480 BC. Title: Am I the asshole for leaving Thermopylae before the final stand when King Leonidas ordered me to retreat? My name is Aristodemos. I am a Spartan warrior, 32 years old, trained since childhood in the Agage, the brutal education system that turns boys into soldiers. I have fought in 12 battles. I have killed 17 men in single combat. I have served my city with honor for 15 years. But 3 days ago, I became the most hated man in Sparta because I survived. Let me tell you what happened at Thermopylae, because the story you've heard, the legend that's already spreading across Greece, it's not the whole truth, and I need you to understand my choice before you judge me. 2 months ago, King Leonidas received word that the Persian Empire was invading Greece. Not a raid, not a skirmish, a full-scale invasion. King Xerxes himself was leading an army so massive that it took 7 days for it to cross the Hellespont. Historians estimate over 100,000 soldiers. Maybe more. Some say 2 million, though I think that's exaggeration meant to terrify us. The Greek city-states held an emergency council. Most wanted to abandon northern Greece, fall back to the Isthmus of Corinth, build a defensive wall, and wait. But Leonidas disagreed. He said if we gave up the north without a fight, we'd be giving up Greek cities, Greek people, Greek honor. He proposed a different strategy: hold them at Thermopylae. Thermopylae is a narrow mountain pass, barely wide enough for a single cart. On one side, steep cliffs. On the other, the sea. It's the perfect choke point. A place where a small force could hold off a massive army because the Persians couldn't use their numbers. They'd have to funnel through the pass, fight us in small groups. Leonidas asked for volunteers. 300 Spartans answered the call. I was one of them, but here's what the legends won't tell you. Those 300 weren't chosen randomly. Leonidas specifically selected men who had living sons, men whose family lines would continue even if they died. It was a death mission from the beginning. We all knew it. I have a son. His name is Cleon. He's 7 years old. When I left for Thermopylae, he cried and asked me why I had to go. I told him, because Sparta needs me, he said. But I need you too. I had no answer for that. My wife, Gorgo, she's the sister of one of Leonidas's personal guards. She's strong, raised in Sparta, understands duty. But when I left, she grabbed my arm and whispered, "Come back. I don't care about glory. Just come back." I promised I would try. We marched to Thermopylae with allied forces from other Greek cities: Thespians, Thebans, Phocians. About 7,000 men total. Leonidas positioned us at the narrowest point of the pass, where the Persians would have to fight, threw us in small waves. For 2 days, we held. The Persians sent wave after wave of soldiers, regular infantry first, then their elite troops, the Immortals. They crashed against our phalanx like ocean waves against a cliff. We stood shoulder to shoulder, shields locked, spears forward. When one man fell, another stepped forward to take his place. I killed 6 Persians the first day, 8 the second day. My shield arm was numb from absorbing impacts. My spear shaft broke twice. Blood covered everything, so thick you couldn't tell where the mud ended and the gore began. But we held. Xerxes himself came to the front lines on the second day to watch. I saw him sitting on his golden throne on a hill, surrounded by guards, watching his soldiers die in that narrow pass. He must have been furious. His infinite army meant nothing when they could only attack us 50 at a time. On the evening of the second day, Leonidas called a meeting. His face was grim. He'd received word that a local Greek traitor, a man named Ephialtes, had shown the Persians a mountain path, a way around our position. By morning, Persian forces would be behind us. surrounding us, cutting off any retreat. Leonidas made a decision. He ordered most of the allied troops to retreat, the Phocians, the Locrians, all the non-Spartan forces. He said, "Go home, tell Greece what happened here. Tell them we fought." But the 300 Spartans would stay. We would hold the pass until the Persians broke through or we all died. We would buy Greece as much time as possible. I remember standing there in the firelight, listening to Leonidas speak. He said, "Tomorrow we dine in Hades. Tomorrow we earn our place in legend. Tomorrow Sparta shows the world what 300 free men can do against an empire of slaves." The men cheered, roared, banged spears against shields. They were ready to die, but I wasn't. That night, I developed an eye infection. It happens sometimes in battle. Dirt and blood getting into your eyes. Inflammation setting in. By midnight, my left eye was swollen shut. By dawn, I could barely see out of my right eye. I went to Leonidas before the sun rose. I told him I was compromised, that I couldn't fight blind, that I'd be a liability in the phalanx. He looked at me for a long time, then he said, "If you cannot fight, you must retreat with the allies. We cannot afford dead weight in the line." I said, "I can still fight. I can hold a spear. I can stand in formation." He said, "A blind man in the phalanx gets everyone around him killed. Go, Aristodemos, return to Sparta. Tell them what we did here." It was an order, a direct command from my king. I had to obey, but I could see it in his eyes. Disappointment, maybe even contempt. I was being given permission to live, and we both knew it was a gift I didn't deserve. I left at dawn with the retreating Allied forces. As we marched away, I turned back and saw the 300 forming up for their final stand, shields locked, spears ready, singing hymns to the gods. My best friend Dienekes saw me leaving. He shouted across the pass, "Aristodemos, are you really going?" I shouted back. "The king ordered it," he said. Nothing, just turned his back and faced the Persian army. That was the last time I saw him alive. The Allied forces reached safety by midday. By evening, we heard the news. The 300 were dead. All of them. Leonidas had fallen early, and the Spartans fought over his body for hours, refusing to let the Persians take it. When the Persians finally overwhelmed them, they retreated to a small hill and made their last stand there. The Thespians stayed. With them, 700 men chose to die rather than retreat. But the Spartans, all 300, they're the ones Greece will remember. I arrived back in Sparta 3 days ago. I expected questions. I expected to have to explain myself. I didn't expect what actually happened. Nobody spoke to me. I walked through the agora, the marketplace, and people turned away. Mothers pulled their children behind them. Old men spat on the ground as I passed. My own. Neighbors wouldn't meet my eyes. I went to my home. My wife opened the door, saw me, and started crying. Not tears of relief, tears of shame, she said. "They're calling you Aristodemos, the coward. They're saying you abandoned your brothers, that you fled while they died," I said. "Leonidas ordered me to leave. My eye was infected. I couldn't fight," she said. "Dienekes fought with a broken arm. Alpheus fought with a spear wound in his side. They all had reasons to leave. They stayed anyway." I had no answer. My son ran to me, hugged my legs, said he was glad I was home, but even he could sense something was wrong. He asked, "Father, why is everyone angry at you?" I said, "Because I'm alive and better men are dead." The Spartan council called me before them yesterday. The 5 ephors, the elected leaders of Sparta, sat in judgment. They asked me to explain why I abandoned my post. I told them the truth, that I was following orders, that Leonidas commanded me to retreat, that I was blind and would have been a liability. One of the ephors, an old man named Sthenelaidas, leaned forward and said, "Did Leonidas order you to develop an eye infection?" I said, "No." He said, "Did he force you to bring this ailment before him and request permission to leave?" I said, "No, but once I had it, I couldn't fight properly." Another ephor said, "There were 2 Spartans who developed eye infections at Thermopylae, you and a man named Eurytus. Do you know what Eurytus did?" I knew. Everyone knew by then. Eurytus, when he heard the Persians were surrounding the pass, ordered his helot servant to lead him blind into battle. He fought without sight, guided only by the sound of combat, and died with his brothers. The ephor continued, "Eurytus was truly blind. You were merely impaired, yet he stayed and you left." Explain that? I couldn't. They stripped me of my rank. They didn't exile me. didn't execute me, but they did something worse. They declared me atomos. Without honor, it means I'm still a citizen, still allowed to live in Sparta, but I have no rights. I cannot speak in the assembly. I cannot vote. I cannot hold public office. No Spartan will do business with me. No family will arrange marriages with my children. I am a ghost in my own city. My wife stopped talking to me. My son asks why the other children won't play with him anymore. My neighbors have turned their backs on me completely. Last night, someone painted the word coward on my door in sheep's blood. I followed orders. I did what my king commanded, and now I'm being punished for it. So here's my question. Am I the asshole for leaving Thermopylae when Leonidas ordered me to retreat? Should I have disobeyed a direct command and stayed to, die with my brothers? Does following orders make me a coward if those orders meant survival? I don't know anymore. All I know is that I'm alive, and every single day I wake up wishing I was dead. Let's check the comments from his fellow Greeks who weighed in on this impossible situation. Top comment from user Spartan Mother Demetria. You are the asshole. My son died at Thermopylae. He was 20 years old. He had a wife and a baby daughter. He had every reason to live. But when Leonidas gave men permission to retreat, my son stayed. Because that's what Spartans do. We don't look for excuses to survive. We look for reasons to fight. You found an excuse that makes you a coward. Reply from Aristodemoson of Telos. I'm sorry for your loss. Your son was a hero. Reply from Spartan Mother Demetria. Don't speak his name. You don't deserve to. Comment from user Thespian Warrior Dithyrambos. Not the asshole. I was there. I saw your eye infection. You legitimately couldn't see. Leonidas made the right call sending you back. The alternative was you getting killed in the first minute of combat and creating a gap in the phalanx that gets 3 other men killed. You followed orders. That's what soldiers do. Reply from Aristodemoson of Telos. Thank you, but it doesn't feel like I did the right thing. Comment from user Athenian Philosopher. This is the problem with Spartan culture. You worship death so much that survival becomes a crime. Aristodemus followed legitimate military orders from his commanding officer. In Athens, we'd celebrate his discipline. In Sparta, you're punishing him for not committing suicide. Which society sounds more insane? Reply from Spartan elder Brasidas. Athens talks about freedom while sending slaves to die in your mines. Sparta creates warriors who choose glory over comfort. We're not the same. Comment from user Helot Servant Anonymous. I'm a Helot, a slave. I was there at Thermopylae serving the Spartan warriors, and I'll tell you what I saw. Aristodemus crying in his tent the night before the final battle. Not because of his eye, because he was terrified. He wanted to live. There's no shame in that. But there's no honor in pretending it was just about following orders either. Comment from user Persians Scribe Xerxes. From the Persian perspective, all of you Greeks are insane. We offered you peace. We offered you mercy. You chose death in a mountain pass instead. And now you're arguing about whether one man was coward enough to accept life. This is why we'll conquer you all. Reply from Aristodemoson of Telos. Persia didn't conquer Greece. You lost at Plataea. We won. Reply from Persians. Scribe Xerxes. Because we made mistakes. But you're right about one thing. Your 300 delayed us. That delay mattered. Even your shame has purpose. Comment from user Leonidas Brother. I'm Leonidas' younger brother. I wasn't at Thermopylae, and I'll tell you something nobody wants to admit. Leonidas specifically chose men with living sons because he knew they had the most to lose. He was testing them. Can a man with everything to live for choose death anyway? Most passed that test. You failed, but the test itself was cruel. Maybe the real question isn't whether you're a coward. Maybe it's whether Leonidas was right to put you in that position. Comment from user Gorgowife Opharistodemos. I'm his wife. I hate him for coming home. I hate him for being alive when better men are dead. But I also hate myself for feeling that way, because he's my husband. He's my son's father. And some selfish part of me is glad he's here. Does that make me as much a coward as him? Reply from Aristodemoson of Telos. Gorgo, I'm sorry. Reply from Gorgowife Opharistodemos. Sorry doesn't bring back honor. Sorry doesn't make our son's life easier. Sorry is just noise. Comment from user Dienekenson. My father, Dienekes, died at Thermopylae. He was the one who said the famous words, "Good, then we'll fight in the shade," when told the Persian arrows would blot out the sun. I'm 11 years old. I'll never see my father again because he chose glory. You chose life. I don't know if you're a coward, but I know I'll grow up without a father, and you're raising your son. Is that fair? Reply from Aristodemoson of Telos. No, it's not fair. Nothing about this is fair. Comment from user Oracle of Delphi. The gods speak in riddles, but on this matter they are clear. Aristodemus carries a burden heavier than death. He will seek redemption. He will find it or die. Trying the choice to live was not cowardice. It was preparation for a greater sacrifice yet to come. 3 months after the original post, an update appeared. Update from Aristodemoson of Telos. I need to tell you what's happened since Thermopylae. The shame has gotten worse. Much worse. I cannot walk through Sparta without being openly mocked. Yesterday, a child threw a stone at me. His mother watched and did nothing. My wife has moved out. She took our son and went to live with her brother. She said she can't bear to look at me anymore. She said every time she sees me, she sees the 300 dying while I ran away. I tried to explain, again, that I followed orders. She said, orders are words. Honor is action. You chose words over action. I've thought about leaving Sparta, starting over in another city where nobody knows me, but that would just prove them right. That I'm a coward who runs when things get hard. So I'm staying and I'm waiting because there's another battle coming. The Persians are still in Greece. They took Athens. They burned the temples. But the Greek alliance is gathering for a final confrontation, a battle that will decide everything. Plataea, that's where we'll make our stand. I've volunteered for the front lines. I've requested assignment to the most dangerous position, the right flank where combat is. Always heaviest. The E4s approved it. Maybe because they think I'll finally die and stop embarrassing them. Maybe because they think I'll run again, and they'll have an excuse to execute me. I don't care which. I'm going. My son came to see me before I left for the mustering grounds. He's been living with his uncle, barely allowed to mention my name. He looked at me and said, "Are you going to die?" I said, "Just probably." He said, "Good. Then maybe people will stop saying mean things about us." He's 7 years old, and he wants me dead because it's easier than having a living father who's a disgrace. I'm writing this from the camp at Plataea tomorrow. We attack 50,000 Greeks against maybe 80,000 Persians. The odds are better than Thermopylae, but it's still a bloodbath waiting to happen. I'm not afraid anymore. Fear is for people who have something to lose. I lost everything already. If I die tomorrow, Sparta will call me redeemed. If I survive, I'll still be Aristodemus the coward, but at least I'll have tried. Either way, this ends at Plataea. 1 week later, a final update appeared. Not from Aristodemus, from someone else. Update from Spartan commander Pausanias. I am Pausanias, commanding general of the Greek forces at Plataea. I'm writing this because Aristodemus, son of Telos, cannot write it himself. The battle happened 3 days ago, the largest land battle in Greek history. We faced the Persian army on the plains of Plataea, and we shattered them. Aristodemus fought in the front line of the Spartan phalanx. When the battle began, he didn't fight like a man seeking glory. He fought like a man seeking death. He broke formation. He charged ahead of the line into the Persian ranks alone, spear flying, cutting through enemy soldiers like a man, possessed. He wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to die honorably. He killed 18 Persians before they brought him down. Arrows, spears, sword wounds. He was covered in blood when we recovered his body. The Spartans wanted to award him the Aristeia, the prize for greatest valor in battle. I refused. Not because he didn't deserve recognition. He fought like a berserker, a man touched by gods or madness or both. But he fought without discipline. He abandoned his brothers in the phalanx to pursue his own redemption. He risked the line to clear his conscience. Leonidas taught us that Spartan strength comes from the phalanx, from fighting together, from trusting the man beside you. Aristodemus forgot that. He fought alone, and yes, he killed many enemies. But he did it for himself, not for Sparta. So we gave the Aristeia to another warrior, a man named Posidonius, who held the line, who fought with discipline, who embodied what it means to be Spartan. Aristodemus is dead. He got his wish. He died in battle. But even in death, Sparta refuses to call him a hero. He wanted redemption. Instead, he got a grave and a footnote in history. The man who survived Thermopylae only to throw his life away at Plataea. I don't know if that's fair, but I know it's what happened. May the gods grant him the peace he couldn't find in life. Final comment from user, historian from the future. 2,500 years from now, people will still debate Aristodemos. Was he a coward? Was he unlucky? Was he a victim of impossible circumstances? The truth is, he was a soldier who made an impossible choice and paid for it every day of his short life. He survived glory, and that, in Sparta, was the only unforgivable sin. This is the story of Aristodemus of Sparta, a man who followed orders and was called a coward, a man who survived when he was supposed to die, a man who spent his last days seeking death to escape shame, only to be denied honor, even in sacrifice. History remembers the 300 Spartans who died at Thermopylae, but it barely remembers the one who lived. Sometimes survival is harder than death. Sometimes the hardest battle isn't the one you fight with spears. It's the one you fight with yourself every morning when you wake up and have to decide if life is worth the shame. Aristodemus chose to keep fighting, and Sparta never forgave him. If you enjoyed this deep dive into ancient Greece, hit that like button and subscribe for more impossible historical choices. Next time, we're going to medieval Europe, where a young woman must choose between an arranged marriage to a man she despises or losing everything her family has built. Drop a comment. If you were Aristodemus, would you have stayed at Thermopylae and died with honor? Or would you have followed your king's orders and lived with shame? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and remember, the past isn't just dates and battles. It's real people making impossible choices that haunt them forever. See you next time.